Some stories linger, like shadows stretched across your memory. They don't fade with time. They wait. Patiently. Quietly. In the corners of rooms you thought you knew. This isn't the kind of story that ends with a scream or some grand demonic encounter. No, it's far worse. Because this thing, this presence, it didn't need to chase me. It just breathed. And somehow, that was enough to change everything. This happened a few years ago when I was in college. I'd found this small, decently priced apartment near campus. It was old but clean, with wood floors, tall windows, and a surprisingly spacious walk-in closet in the bedroom. I remember being genuinely excited about that closet. It was huge, big enough to step inside and stretch your arms. I thought it was a luxury at the time. I had no idea it would become the reason I stopped sleeping at night. The first couple of weeks were ordinary. I was still settling in, late-night study sessions, cheap microwave meals, and endless boxes I kept promising myself I'd unpack tomorrow. I'd hear the usual apartment sounds, pipes groaning, neighbors above stomping around, maybe even a raccoon on the fire escape. But around the end of the second week, something shifted. It was small at first. Barely noticeable. Just breathing. It started when I was lying in bed late one night, scrolling through my phone. I'd turned off the main lights, just the faint glow of the screen lighting my face. That's when I noticed it, what I thought was the sound of someone exhaling. Very softly. Not rhythmic like snoring, not harsh like the wind. Just breath. Faint. Uneven. I paused, held my own breath to listen. And there it was again, an inhale, a pause, then a slow, shaky exhale. It was coming from the closet. I sat up, trying to convince myself it was the air conditioning or maybe some weird acoustics from the hallway. But the AC wasn't running. And the hallway? Silent. The sound came again. Same breath. Same rhythm. I got out of bed, cautiously approached the closet, and swung the door open. Nothing. Just my hanging clothes, a few boxes on the floor, and total silence. I told myself it was nothing. Just my imagination. Or maybe I was overtired. That explanation worked for a while. Until it kept happening. Night after night. Always around 1:30 to 2 a.m. Always the same sound. Breathing. Not every night, but enough to notice. Enough to fear it. One night, I left the closet light on before bed, just to see if it made a difference. And strangely, it did. The breathing stopped for 3 nights straight. I almost laughed at myself, maybe I'd scared away my own paranoia. But then came the 4th night. The breathing returned. This time, it was louder. I remember lying completely still in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding in my chest. The breathing was just a few feet away, just beyond the thin door separating my room from that walk-in space. It wasn't angry. It wasn't aggressive. It was present. And worst of all, intentional. I stopped going into the closet at night. I'd throw things in there quickly and shut the door. I even pushed a chair in front of it one night, hoping that if it was something physical, that would keep it inside. The next morning, the chair was tipped over. I tried to convince myself I'd bumped it in my sleep, but deep down, I didn't believe it. Then things escalated. I started waking up to small, eerie changes. One of my shirts, perfectly folded, would be lying flat on the floor. A shoe moved just slightly from its place. One night, I found all the hangers swaying back and forth, as if someone had run a hand across them seconds before I opened the door. There was no draft. No explanation. But the worst part, the part that made my blood run cold, was the night it spoke. It was about 1:45 a.m. I was lying in bed, staring at the closet, paralyzed with unease. I could hear the breathing again, but something felt different. Closer. I pulled the blanket up to my chin like a child hiding from monsters. And then, in the middle of the breath cycle, I heard it. A whisper. Just one word. I see you. The voice was low. Not raspy or monstrous, just a cold, flat whisper, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping baby. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and stared at the door. The knob didn't move. Nothing else happened. But I knew. I knew something had spoken. I left that night. Didn't even grab a bag. Slept in my car with the doors locked and the engine running. I remember staring at the dashboard clock for hours, waiting for sunrise. The next morning, I went straight to the property manager's office. I wasn't subtle. I told her flat out that something was wrong with that unit. She gave me that look landlords give when they're trying to stay polite but don't want to deal with crazy tenants. But after a moment, her face shifted. She hesitated. Then pulled out an old file. There was another tenant, she said. A few years back. Lived alone. Quiet guy. Kept to himself. One day, he started complaining about sounds. Said someone was hiding in the closet. Police checked, nothing. Then one night, he was found collapsed in the hallway outside the bedroom. Heart failure. But, the coroner mentioned signs of severe stress. Panic. They said it could have been fear-induced. That was all I needed to hear. I moved out within the week. I never looked back. Until about 6 months ago. I got an email from a student who'd moved into that same apartment. Apparently, I'd left behind an old folder on a thumb drive in the back of a drawer. My email was in one of the documents. The message was short. Casual at first. Then it turned dark. Hi, it said. I'm sorry to bother you, but, did you ever hear breathing at night? I keep waking up at 1:47 a.m. exactly. Last night, the closet whispered my name. I never replied. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? Some things don't make sense. They don't need to. They don't ask your permission to exist. They just wait. In silence. In darkness. And when the time is right, they let you know they're there. They don't scream. They don't growl. They breathe. So tonight, when you lie in bed, and the house settles, and the air turns still, just listen. And if you hear breathing from your closet, don't open the door. Don't say a word. And whatever you do, don't breathe back.